This is one of the most important motions to come before this House for a considerable period of time, and is one in which we in the Labour Party genuinely hope will jolt this government out of its complacency and indeed lethargy in dealing with one of the most important issues which has not been confronted to date by the government, and that is unemployment, which could by the beginning of 2011 see 14% of our working population being registered unemployed. Indeed, were it not for the 60,000 that have emigrated to date, could well have reached that level. We have arrived at this situation here in Ireland, notwithstanding the cold winds of recession which are echoed across the world and which we recognise. But we didn't arrive here per chance. We arrived here by a devotion to unregulated speculative capitalism, as our party president Michael D. Higgins has described it, which has resulted in a great cost to our population, and which has been underpinned with equal force and vigour by a rejection of any market regulation, or where such regulation is effected, it was of such a minimalist, light-touch variety as to be largely ineffective, and of course a very deep-seated ideological and rigorous rejection of any state intervention. This net result of this let it rip and spend like no tomorrow economic philosophy is that the number of people who are languishing on the unemployment register, devoid of hope and deserted to date by this uncaring government. Unemployment has negative effects that go beyond the loss of income on people of any age. Unemployment is associated with illness, mental stress, depression, a reduction in life expectancy, and of course sometimes it impacts negatively on relationships. Sustained unemployment when young has very negative long-term consequences for those who experience it. Young people who are unemployed at the beginning of their working life tend to have lower productivity, lower incomes and poor labour market experiences later in life. It's the UK economist David Blanchflower, who's an authority on youth unemployment, has written, and I've said this here before in the Dáil, unemployment in youth creates permanent scars rather than temporary blemishes. We in the Labour Party strongly believe that research, development and innovation has a key and indeed central role to play in the development of the Irish economy. Recently, the Dáil Éireann launched Horizon 2020, which is a strategic blueprint and roadmap for attracting foreign direct investment into Ireland for the next decade. Under this strategy, the aim is to create 105,000 new jobs by the end of 2014, and the plan is to attract 640 new foreign direct investments into the country, with 50% of these investments targeted for locations outside the major centres of Dublin and Cork. By 2014, Dáil Éireann plans to spend in excess of €1.7 billion annually on research, development and innovation to transform the economy and create high-quality jobs. I acknowledge this is a highly ambitious document, and the Labour Party acknowledges the important role that foreign direct investment will play in helping to turn around the economy and rejuvenate enterprises and business. Attracting and developing high-tech enterprise and investing in research and development will be the key to developing a strong economy and help to pull Ireland out of the current recession by creating sustainable jobs, increasing competitiveness and boosting exports. I have no problem saluting the IDA and Enterprise Ireland for the work they are doing in their respective areas. But why hasn't the government prepared a 10-year blueprint or plan to ensure that small and medium-sized enterprises prosper and develop, and which up to the beginning of the recession numbered about 250,000 in total, and to create and sustain 750,000 jobs? There has been an abject failure on the part of this government to recognise the fact that these small businesses, many of them family-owned and or operated, were the backbone of the economy and were resilient and adaptable, and which provided 2 and 3 and 4 and 8 and 12 jobs in many villages and towns across this country, and indeed were instrumental in maintaining the social fabric of rural communities. And instead of coming to the aid of some of these enterprises to help to secure them against the cold winds of this recession, the government has virtually abandoned them. And to feel that, businesses that we talk to every day re-echo that to us. The Labour Party is committed to supporting enterprise and in supporting in every possible way to job creation capacity and potential of our indigenous small to medium firms. The government to date has concentrated its energy and resources upon fixing the banking crisis and attempting to address the fiscal situation, but has failed to address the significant fundamental problems of the real economy, the plight of the unemployed, where we have witnessed an increase of 250,000 in the number of people who have been registered unemployed the past 2 years, and there are forecasts predicting that we could have another 60,000 to 70,000 on the live register before the end of the year. And of course that's assuming a do-nothing approach. which seems to have this government in a state of paralysis. Do nothing to tackle this very fundamental issue. Let us not, as I said, forget that these figures will be significantly worse were it not for the fact that the emigration ship and planes have opened up again, and in the space of 2 short years will take 100,000 of our people, some of them the best educated and best equipped, to help us get us out of this recession to foreign shores and climes. That is the legacy of this failed government's policies. We know the banks have lost their edge, indeed have lost the will in small business lending. And the banks themselves do not appear to have the capacity, as my party leader says, to lend to SMEs and to firms with high growth potential. Therefore, it is abundantly clear that we need a new investment bank to address the project capital and SME funding gaps that are glaringly apparent and which will play a crucial role in helping to reduce unemployment from its current levels. Viable businesses are being forced out of business. I don't want the minister to start telling me that that's not happening, that is kind of exaggeration. That is happening. Others are being prevented from expanding by the shortage of credit, and new ones with potential are being denied the opportunity to get off the ground at all. This is why the Labour Party has launched a proposal for the establishment of a strategic investment bank, which we believe would play a central role in the recovery and transformation of the Irish economy. We believe that the Irish economy must be weaned off once and for all its dependence on property and consumer credit and be reinvented as an export-led sustainable investment economy. The Strategic Investment Bank, which we propose here again this evening and which has already been alluded to in great detail by our party leader, Eamon Gilmore, would represent a new greenfield bank modelled on a mixture of the ICC-ACC concept and indeed which he referred to was kernel to the KfW Bank in Germany, and which would have a clear mission to support investment in SMEs and innovative firms, to assist in the funding of infrastructural investment, as pointed out by the party leader. Labour has always argued that necessary action to deal with the banking crisis and with the budget deficit must also be accompanied by a strategy for jobs, and I think our party leader and our deputy leader, spokesperson on finance, Joan Burton, has always read that there's a tripod approach, not just 2 legs, and you could never balance the little tripod stool in that case. The bottom you always fell backwards. If you know anything, I'm sure Deputy Cleary knows about milking the cow with the tripod. Maybe he didn't do it, but some of us did. To this end, we believe, and more importantly, know that the SIB would play a vital role in that job strategy, securing the existing jobs and creating new ones. The Strategic Investment Bank would have a mandate to lend directly to the enterprise sector, providing working capital and growth capital, including asset finance, such as for fixtures and fittings or for capital equipment. And those are the lifeblood of getting business, sustaining business, and people replacing depreciated items and getting new items to meet with modern technology. It could, if required, make venture capital investments on behalf of the state. And that's no longer a poisoned word. We have some people who recoil at the thought of the state getting involved in anything. But we don't. We believe that where it's strategically done, it's very worthwhile, and it would contribute to trying to address the problems. And those, on behalf of the state, and innovative SMEs with high growth potential, especially in the digital economy and the low carbon technology areas. Ireland needs investment in infrastructure like renewable energy and next generation communication networks. This will create the environment for a new wave of indigenous companies focused on the huge opportunities that will arise as a result of the expansion of digital technologies and the transition to a low carbon economy over the coming decades. Providing finance for this new innovative economy will be one of the key roles of the Strategic Investment Bank. Now, creating jobs is the key to getting Ireland moving again, and the Strategic Investment Bank is just one of a number of proposals that the Labour Party has advanced as part of our job strategy. And I recoil at journalists who are lazy to look up our policies and say you haven't made a proposition or a proposal to deal with particular areas. The party leaders outlined some more of them tonight. The spokesperson of finances wore out outlining them. But journalists who just want to say, oh, well, the Labour Party is not doing anything, they're being negative. We have lots of positive proposals. We'll send them all to them if they can't get them down on that internet or wherever webs that they look at. We'll send them to them in the post. One of the things is that we remain autonomous, and we know that under the Lisbon Treaty, and have sovereign competence in respect to the decisions we make in relation to taxation. So why is a proposal we made in relation to PSI holidays for up to 18 months in respect of employers' PSI, where a firm takes on a person who is unemployed for a set period for a real job, which is full-time and not a replacement job, not been taken on board by the government as a constructive proposal? We are aware that every person on the live register costs more than €20,000 each year in terms of social welfare payments and tax gone. So we have to be innovative, and old solutions dressed up in new clothes are no longer appropriate. We also need to fund a major programme of further education, training and work experience for young unemployed people. We see small business and micro-entrepreneurs as playing a pivotal role in ensuring that we recover quickly and give hope and confidence to our people, and especially the 435,000 of our fellow citizens who are currently unemployed. The core objective of our economic policy is to replace Fianna Fáil's casino economy with a sustainable investment economy. This is one where innovation is promoted across all sectors, where there is an environment that promotes firm start-ups and expansion, and where there is a real commitment to the provision of world-class infrastructure. These objectives are all clearly linked, and what is essential is that companies in these sectors must have access to working capital and growth capital and to a range of other supports. Improved infrastructure is essential for enhancing Ireland's competitiveness and attractiveness as a location for foreign direct investment. The Strategic Investment Bank will have a key role to play in promoting and sourcing funding for infrastructure investment in appropriate projects such as in transport, energy, communications and innovation. The government's obsession to date was to sort out the banks, as I said, and despite a lot of lip service and promises of credit reviews, I see them again, these reports, there has been a downright failure to provide a credit flow to small and medium enterprises. NAMA represents an enormous transfer of public money into private hands at the end of the day. It is a grim example of what Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz has called socialism for the rich, markets for the poor. We used to be constantly told that markets were all about risk, and that in a dynamic market economy, losses and business failures are inevitable. I recall some of the great economists for the banks giving us that particular beauty. But they have disappeared into towers. I don't know whether they're ivory or not, and we haven't heard a squeak out of them lately. But then, of course, market failures has to be addressed by socialist solutions. So we're back in play, thanks be to God. We are told that NAMA is essential in order that banks can begin to lend to job-creating enterprise. But there's little evidence that the banks are doing this or that the government is willing to compel them to do so. Irrespective of the $3 billion for each of the main banks and the $6 billion, I don't hear a squeak out of this yet. Who's monitoring this? Who's going to control it? In truth, the government in effect has very little capacity to ensure that any bank lends to the productive sector of the economy. Our proposal for the establishment of a strategic investment bank is to remedy this situation, and we are confident the bank will help address these glaring and obvious market failures. People might argue that banks are lending and that our argument here tonight is bogus, but it is not, as we're not alone in articulating this position. In the past few weeks, ISME, who carry out a bank watch survey on a quarterly basis, confirmed that there was clear evidence that there was a deterioration in bank credit for SMEs, with more than half of loan and overdraft requests refused for the 3-month period up to the 1st of March 2010. So that's only a month ago, or 6 weeks ago. And everybody is telling us that the sky is blue the whole time, that the banks are handing out this money. I only heard from somebody who went in to get a 2,000 addition into their overdraft, were told to go goodbye. The 5,000 you have, we're lucky we're not going to take it off you altogether. And this, I mean, this is Walter Mitty stuff coming from the government. And that survey concluded that 55% of businesses were refused lending, business closures and job losses were directly linked to lack of credit. That's not us saying it. That's somebody who's out there dealing with those, at the coalface dealing with those businesses. And government intervention was urgently required to save thousands of businesses. ISME concluded the reality was the banks were looking after their own interests, as Deputy Gilmore said, and shoring up their own balance sheets to the detriment of the rest of the economy. And I think everybody in the House knows that. ISME actually called for the introduction of a third banking force to compete with the big two, with a particular emphasis on SME lending. And the government must use the influence of its shareholding in the banks to force them to start supporting their SME customers. The Minister for Finance has announced he's going to force the banks to lend $6 billion to increase the lending to the SME sector. It's welcome, but who's going to monitor it? Or will it come back in the same report? The Mazars report, and I concluded this, on SME lending, but that was funded by the Irish Banks Federation, remember that? Asserted that there was only a slight decrease in bank lending to SMEs and a higher approval rate by the banks between October to December 2009. Now ISME, like ourselves, all of us people who are in the real world out there, We have all rubbished the report findings, and from our contact with individuals and businesses who have had contact with their banks seeking new funding or who are trying to negotiate retention of existing facilities, we are of the view that the findings of that report are questionable, to say the least. The time is right for the establishment of a new strategic investment bank. It is right for our national economic and infrastructure development. It is right for small and medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs and individuals, and it is right for our country at this critical juncture. So let us go and do it now.